started, so we'll come to order, and we'll have approval of the minutes from the October 17th meeting. May I have a motion to that effect, please?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Tracy, second?
I'll second.
Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So carried. Okay, you're up first.
Cheyenne.
Hi. So I'm Cheyenne, the SJ president. If you don't know me, I'm sure introductions are way past you. But the first thing I'd like to report on is the charity volleyball tournament. I have a picture actually of all of us. If you can pass that around, you can look at all the clubs. We actually had the most clubs come out in SJ history for the charity volleyball. In the past, charity volleyball is like a friendly competition, so clubs can donate the money that the clubs give to participate to a charity that they choose. But this year, SGA chose a charity, and it was the Charleston Humane Society for the Hurricane Florence self-relief for animals. So we try to tug at their hearts, and a lot of clubs came out for that. So we earned around $700, and we just cut the check to send to the Charleston Humane Society. So.
And see who's in the middle. Guess who played?
Yeah, President
You survived that.
I was going to say that.
Scary brave,
no president has ever come to charity volleyball, so we thank you. Yeah, so we thank you, President Trentier, for coming.
Are you kidding? It was fun.
She's right there next to me, sitting down, and she did play in the SGA. We had SGA team for the first time, and she played for like 5 minutes. She was like, all right,
I'm out of here.
My Fitbit says.
I've done my duty.
But we did make it to the second round, SGA.
Yeah, you did?
But we did not win.
Can I tell the funny story?
Yes, sure.
When SGA played against the Christian club, and we have some very smart young women, so the Christian club won and went up to SGA and said, see, God trumps government all the time. It's very funny. I thought that was hysterical.
Very strong woman, very
yeah,
strong.
she is.
Apparently they play all the time, so I'm not surprised.
They were ringers.
Yeah. Very intimidating. So so the charity volleyball went really well for SGA, and we got clubs input, so that was really cool. The next thing, we had the blood drive last week on Tuesday, and we did really well. We did better than last year. We had 68 units, 10 more than last year, which is still an improvement. We'd like more, but we were glad that people came out and our promotion efforts worked for us. Then we have the holiday parade coming up on December 1st. I'm not sure if you all know that. And clubs usually make that parade, and it usually makes it what it is. So we're doing a friendly competition again this year. Not again. The new thing. And it basically, SGA, the exec board, is going to judge the floats or anything they put together, see if the most creative holiday spirit, Cobleskill spirit, and then we'll give them $100 toward any line they want for their budget. And then SGA is going to dress up as elves and hand out hot chocolate while we judge.
What day of the week is the first?
It's a Saturday.
It is the
at
Saturday.
5 o'clock, yeah. So if you guys are around Cobleskill, it's going to happen right on Main Street or the town, and you'll see SJ there. But a bunch of clubs usually go all out with their floats and their trucks and their Christmas lights. So we wanted to up that game and put some friendly competition. We have some money, so we're going to hand it out. So. The next thing, we have SUNY SA coming up this week on Friday. The exec board's leaving on Friday with 3 members, actually, so 8 people in all going together. Matt Lalonde is going to be our advisor this week. He's our advisor anyway, but he's actually going to take us without Jeff Foote. So it's good for Matt to get in with SGA a little bit more and have like a hand in a conference with us. So we're really excited this weekend.
Where is it?
It's in Albany. Yeah,
easy.
it's at.
Could you tell me what SA is or what it stands for?
Student Assembly. Yeah, it's like the SGA for all SUNY.
Okay.
And then, but SGA, it's not just SGA, it's like student activities. A lot of schools call it different things, so it's kind of like the broad government that students have on campus. So it's a great place to get some ideas we can bring to this campus, so we're excited to go there. There's nothing really much left for SGA, but on a personal note and a professional note, I'm going to be speaking at the Berkshire Farm Agency award ceremony they're having here at campus for foster kids. Basically, they complete this 14-week class, and it's like life skills. And I'm a foster kid, so I'm going to speak on like how being independent happened for me. I haven't drafted the speech yet. It's in December, but I'm very excited for that, just to represent SUNY Cobleskill and to show that foster kids can make it. So.
If I may, and I keep saying our student government presidents every year is the best. We went from, Clara to Sarah to Roy to Cheyenne, and she is remarkable, and I have to say, one of the best actually, I will say that. She took this on. She's a sophomore, guys. Yeah, she's a sophomore, and the leadership she has shown, the way she treats and interacts with her fellow students and her exec board, it's just delightful to watch and to be a part of it. So you are an exceptional leader, and I don't say that, I just don't say that as folks know, but you deserve to hear that in front of actually your faculty and the council. You're doing a very outstanding job. And she walks around and people high five her. They feel comfortable around her. She just lights up the room and inspires her fellow students to rise to the occasion. So good for you.
Thank you.
Would you like to tell them what you told me this morning?
I'm up on the wall?
No.
Oh.
Finally made it.
What did I tell you? Oh, next year.
If you're on the wall.
I know, right? I think they whiten my teeth. But yeah, so next year, since I'm only a sophomore, I'm actually looking to be SGA president next year as well, if I don't burn out by that time. But I love SGA.
Talk to me, honey.
Yeah, right. Right.
And I love student engagement, so I see myself being in this for another year, which is totally not what an SGA president does. Never for one term. But let's see if they vote me in again, and if they do, I'm going to do it. So.
Good.
Thank you.
And that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, that's all.
I know, right? I'll actually know what I'm doing.
Okay, President Terencio.
Well, I would like to reorder it, and I would like to turn to the provost to introduce our two guest faculty here today. And the council is saying they want to hear more from the work of the faculty. And I think it makes perfect sense. So, Sue, would you do the honors of introducing?
So we've made it really easy for you. Let me introduce you to Doug and Doug. So Doug McLeod and Doug Flanagan. They are two very separate and independent.
We call ourselves the collective.
And the other piece, and Eric Hage is the chair of the department, but also communications faculty. And Eric couldn't be here today. He had another commitment, but he is kind of the third part of this team, this communications team. Doug Flanagan is kind of brand new to us, came from Herkimer.
Yep.
And we're excited to have him here. He brings a lot of experience. So Doug Flanagan is really more the studio piece, and for those of you going up to see the studio today, Doug Flanagan will give you a tour. And Doug McLeod, more the theory. Would that be the best way to put it? The theoretical aspects of communications. And they are going to just talk a little bit about where the program currently is and where they plan to go, their kind of vision for the program, and especially since there was a very successful Text to Give campaign at the Culinary Extravaganza. So we're really excited about next steps with communications. Yeah. So there you go.
Yep. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Doug McLeod. I'm an associate professor of composition and communication here at the institution. I'm also the program coordinator for the communication program. I've been here for 10 years in various capacities. I started here as a writing tutor, then I was an adjunct, then a visiting instructor, then an assistant professor, and an associate professor. So I've been here for a while. As far as communication is concerned, I started here as a professor and then worked my way into the program coordinator position. Several years ago, we had a program review, and our program review was very, very, very positive. But the one thing that was really discussed quite a bit was the state of our TV studio. The TV studio is functional, I would say, is a good word for it, but it wasn't necessarily up to date. And so what ended up happening was we had a professor prior to Doug in, and she was speaking about maybe not just an upgrade, but really kind of doing a whole new TV studio kind of setup, which is obviously was a kind of a difficult sort of scenario. We're talking about in the hundreds of thousands of dollars as opposed to, the idea of getting new equipment in there and really starting to refurbish what is still a very, very good space. So what ended up happening was the last professor decided to leave, and then we hired Doug Flanagan. And Doug, I cannot say enough about this guy. He has so much experience within this field of study, and he went in there guns blazing, and he's been doing such a wonderful job with the TV studio and trying to refurbish what is, as I said, I think a very, very good space to really kind of rebuild that particular thing. Grab more technical sorts of production level. Let's just say contemporary production level material for our. The fact is that we needed that material and that technology to make sure that our students were getting the best of the best. So when they go out into the professional universe, they're actually using gaining proper skills when they leave here. So thanks to the administration, we were able to get a lot of money from the culinary extravaganza to be able to start working on that. Also, though, we were able to, and Doug will talk to you a little bit about this as well, the New York State Lotto got in touch with us, it was almost like a act of God type of thing. They called us and they said, listen, we're getting rid of our old equipment. Would you be willing to take it? And we were like, let's think about it.
That's easy for us, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for also reflecting the work of the faculty at this table. And I'm happy that the College Council is interested in what we do on a daily basis, like go into the classroom and scrounge dumpsters for equipment. Not quite, but you never know what you can find.
Oh, no, that's right.
It's inside in the bottom of Porter Hall. It's there.
Right.
It's okay.
So is there a PowerPoint on here that we're pulling up, Doug?
I have one on this laptop. I wasn't really thinking about that. But
No, that's okay. I thought there was.
I think this one is for the
ACT.
SUNY.
All right, sorry about that. All right, so you're on your own.
I can send around
Yeah.
the power. Actually, I built a PowerPoint for open house.
That's
run
right.
kind of continuously.
So that's the one we
I can
saw.
send that around. Yeah.
I think most people might have seen. Okay, I thought there was something else, but
Okay. Thank you very much,
Thanks,
folks.
Doug.
Thank you.
Hi, Doug.
Bye-bye now.
Something that
What was your first name again? Eugene. Whatever you want to hear from me, or if you have any questions, I know many of you are going to come up for a little tour in a little bit and see the TV studio. You will be seeing it in its before state, because all the things we're talking about right now are forthcoming. And it really has been sort of a perfect storm. It was literally 4 days after I got hired that Eric Hage sent me this email trail from the New York State Lottery, and we're doing this. So long story short, they're upgrading their facilities. They're almost done with it, and most of the equipment that they had, like we went there 2 or 3 times. Yep, we'll take this, and this. So the big chunk there will be the studio cameras, which are, if we had to do that ourselves, you're probably talking a minimum of 40 to 60 grand. So we're getting 3 broadcast quality digital, not high def, but digital studio cameras. That's the plan. So they expect to be done with that by the end of the year. And hopefully, we've been talking about the fundraising efforts from the culinary extravaganza. And the 2 main items we're looking at there include a wholesale replacement of the video switcher that's in the studio now. And really what that will wind up being is this sort of integrated thing, which includes video switching, media playback, graphics, recording, live streaming, and whatever else we want to do with it. So it's actually, I think, fortunate for this institution that you didn't go through all the rigmarole of going from analog to digital to high def to whatever's coming next. Because what we're talking about doing right now, hopefully by the spring semester, would probably have cost, I'm going to say on the low end, 150 to 200 grand like 10 years ago. And now we're talking about 30. It's really moved that quickly. And that combined with the free donations, man, from the New York State Lottery, it's just going to be really good. So you guys, like I said, are going to see the before. And I'll just follow up very briefly on what Doug talked about in terms of the program review and things like that. And without going into great detail, I will just say what a pleasure it is to be at an institution where information went into something like a program review. and people actually paid attention to it. And because I probably went through 3 program reviews where each one we discussed, oh, this probably should happen, and you never heard back from it. So to hear that even being discussed at a table like this is pretty refreshing. I worked for 17 years at Herkimer College. They decided for some reason to get rid of the communication programs. So I decided to say goodbye. And got lucky and wound up here. And I kid you not, the system that we are looking at is the exact same system I was contemplating getting at Herkimer. I've already demoed it twice. I know the distributor, I know the people at the company, and it's a pretty good system. So I worked there 17 years. I worked for 11 years in broadcasting. Before that, and my standard joke is I teach students how to press the buttons, hopefully in the right order. Sometimes they do it. But I'm happy to answer any questions you guys might have. I mean, it might make more sense up at the studio later.
If I may, why this is so important is, as we keep saying, as we've owned our name, is the only way to be an effective college in the space of agriculture and technology is to have very strong liberal arts and sciences, humanities, and communication is one of those, let alone what the sciences bring to the table. So this is a no-brainer. As we are building stronger for the entire campus, we define ourselves through communication, through the humanities, through the arts, through the sciences. And I think that's what makes us a stronger institution. I was fortunate to have Trustee Eunice Lewin come by to talk about us. And she was interesting because she said, do you like the word technical? I said, no, I don't. First of all, it's technology. We're not technical. But let me tell you even more the reason. I said, we have very strong liberal arts and sciences here. And this college could not be an effective technology institution without them. And she got it. So it's important that we continue to recognize the good work you guys do and how you then will define how we look at ourselves and the world and how we communicate effectively, all of that. So that's why, again, it's a no-brainer. But so thank you. Are there any questions for Doug?
Yes.
Not to put the gift horse in the mouth. Is the lottery stuff any good? And
Good
what's its
question.
life?
Some of it.
Should we start planning now for the next generation?
Well, I'm glad you asked. I always kind of compare it to, it's not a used car, it's previously enjoyed. Honestly, some of that equipment is old. You're looking at 10, 12-year-old equipment. And especially in terms of the production equipment, that we're still dealing with, tape-based technology, digital tape-based, but tape-based, and a lot of older digital but older systems. So long story short is we agreed to just take it all because it was easier for them. And then some other things changed, but we've basically taken a lot of it. Like I said, the big thing there is the studio cameras, which again would be, even in today's prices, like I said, 40 to 60 grand for that equipment. Those 3 cameras are the big ticket items in my opinion, and they will work well with the systems we're integrating here. And this is happening a lot in small market media where, just because something's new doesn't mean we run out and buy it. Many small TV stations and production facilities are combining high def and standard definition, and now you're combining standard or high definition and 2K and 4K. So it kind of sets that path. So is there a lot of it we'll probably wind up tossing? Yeah, probably. But there's a lot of it we're going to keep as well. And there's a lot of legacy equipment there that I will probably attempt to keep just because you've all got a box of videotape somewhere in your attic or your basement. What are you going to do with that?
Oh,
We
good point.
need things to play back. We need, you need to kind of support that technology. So yeah, some of it's probably going to go in the bin or elsewhere, but a lot of it will be implemented and used.
Wendy?
I just want to follow up on the equipment we're not going to be able to use. We do surplus through OGS, and they actually have an eBay site where they sell equipment, so we can sometimes make a little bit of money off of it. So.
I mean, you're talking about. I have a bunch of 2-inch videotape reels from my time in television. there's
Not
still a
cheap.
market out there.
There's a
Right.
secondary market now.
Oh,
yeah, right.
going
because
up
they're not
in
making
price.
it, yeah,
Yeah.
because that's used for audio recording and analog. Go figure, analog is popular again. But yeah, so a lot of that stuff, there is a market for that stuff.
So is there any, oh,
The other thing is of course, you're not here teaching them how to use a particular piece of equipment
Mhm.
because that changes so fast.
Oh, absolutely.
But it's all of the things.
Mhm.
We had a hard time beginning. I was here when we got the program.
Right.
So it was a lot of questions even on campus about this, but it is a very technical program, but it's also one with a lot of theory behind it and understanding
Right.
how you reach your audience and
Right.
how you adapt to new equipment.
right.
Exactly.
You know, so.
And to be fair, the system that is in place right now, it works.
Yeah.
It is functional. And teaching in that studio this semester has been fine. We're doing the process, and there's pre-production, production, and post-production. But the tools that are in there now are along the same level of technology as I like to say, the VCR that you probably threw out recently. So never, right? But you need to keep one around. So what we're looking at hopefully builds the base and establishes a foundation to build that studio up even further. And I've kind of got a plan in the back of my head. In my short time here, I've heard a lot of okay, this side needs to talk to this side and work together. I think there's an avenue to combine that facility with getting the message about agriculture in general out there to the public.
Right.
And I think those two things can really work well together. I was joking with my students the other day, and we're talking about stories. How many stories are in the Cantor building? Oh, I think there's 4 floors. There's 10,000 stories in that building. Go find one. Go find one that's interesting to look at. Let's go tell it.
So those of you who can do the tour, you'll get to see the space. So we'll get them over there. But thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much,
all
Doug.
right.
We appreciate
I'll be up.
your
There
time.
might be a couple students up there as
Oh,
well.
good.
Toying around. We'll see.
All right.
They say they'll be there, and then maybe they'll be sleeping in. Who knows?
Who knows, right?
But actually, I look forward to seeing you guys up there,
Yeah.
and we'll go from there.
Thanks, Doug.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Doug.
Yeah.
All right.
Have a class on helping us all adapt to the new technologies and change.
I am a phone call away. You just let me know. Happy. I usually get a call from my 89-year-old mother-in-law once every other week. Can you come up?
Mhm.
More than that. Thank you all. We'll see you
Bye-bye.
soon.
Thank you.
On your last comment, Ann, I think that's a great idea because we have a school program which is meant for retirees to come back and learn more. And that would be
we
a
come back to teach because we have a class full of students who actually do the reading and come in and
That's
excited
lovely.
about the topic.
Okay, so the government relations reports, we thought we'd keep you up to date on what's happening with all of that, and we sent out the attachments, right? So it was the NGA, the Institute, and the 2 institutes, right? Without the 2?
Yes, one for Schumer.
Yeah, and the Schumer. So we thought it'd be important that we are finally moving into that government space. Senator Schumer's visit was well received, obviously, and if you saw the Daily Gazette, it was not picked up in the Times Journal, his visit, even though the Times Journal was present, but I don't know what that was about. And he did say, very impressive, sold. And his chief of staff said to us, I have time, and you need to fill my time with Cobleskill stuff. So, and he's in the Albany office. So we are planning to bring more forward. We brought the food systems forward to him because that was an interest of his. So if you see that one, we're trying to show the senator that food systems is very broad, from not just production all the way through to consumption. There's a lot more to it. So we saw the national security piece because we are now in that arena. If you haven't heard, Professor Cornwell was invited to go down to Washington, D.C. by the National Intelligence Council after their visit here to talk about next steps with all of what's going on with climate change. I am sure Dr. Iggy will be getting tapped as well. I can't believe she won't be. So our faculty are getting involved with the government at the national level, federal level. And he met with policymakers who will be informing, not the policy analysts, who will be informing the policy makers of what to look for in national security in those areas. We also, you saw an invitation from the National Governors Association to me to go to Las Vegas in December to talk about best practices at SUNY Cobleskill. I've already talked to the chancellor, so it's going to be SUNY Cobleskill, the governor's office, as well as 2 other national associations, including Cornell's association. I've already talked to Cornell, and our national association. So that is another arena that I think is important. If you look at the NGA's agenda, one of them is rural resurgence, plus what is the workforce for the country. And we wanted to show you how we're put the graphic in for the Institute for Rural Vitality, because that's the centerpiece for all of this. So I think we're doing very well in the government relations area. Assembly Member Glick was here as well. So anytime people are visiting us, they are seeing what Cobleskill is doing on behalf of higher education in this state. And I say we enhance SUNY's brand. So we just wanted you to have that. Did you all, Barb? You got the attachments?
But that's okay. I'll get them. I put them out here.
In the email when we sent it
I
out.
didn't get the email.
Okay.
But that's okay. I have it right here.
Okay.
To get it from you and Amy.
Okay, good. All right. Any other comments or questions from any of you who have been involved with this? Okay.
That was really exciting that Schumer would come here and spend time.
Spend time and actually enjoyed it. He was interesting in that if you haven't ever dealt with Senator Schumer, he peppers you with questions. And the minute he has an answer, he shuts you down and says, okay, let's move on. So it was an interesting time, but he was very, very, very impressed. And we're very pleased for that. So, and again, what can we do for you, he said. So we'll see how that plays out.
700 SUNYs.
Yeah, right. We also, if you haven't heard, by the way, Peter Lopez's mother passed away on Friday, and he and I have been in contact with each other because he wants to know where the gasifier is in where we are in terms of a status. I think he's very interested to see if it can help out in Puerto Rico. So we are working with him on that. He also wants to, I think, tout it because he says in New York City they're bragging that they have the best, and it only takes out 40% of the landfill but puts back 15%. We take out more than that and we don't put anything back. So I think he wants to really show off that actually there's better technology than what New York City is touting. So that whole piece is also moving forward. Very exciting. We wanted to keep you up to date on what we're thinking about in the budget update and our workforce management strategy. So Wendy, you want to fill the council in on your good thinking on this and where we're going with shared governance?
Sure. This initially came out of the FAST committee, Fiscal Affairs and Strategic Planning, thinking about how we can look at our workforce and make sure we're using our resources effectively. I mean, I think I mentioned this at the last meeting that payroll is about 80% of our budget, 85%, depending on which version you want to look at. We have to be very mindful of how we do that. So we're pulling together a committee. FAST is going to have 3 representatives. We're going to have representatives from across the whole campus. We're going to be planning our first meeting very shortly. And the goal of the committee is to help put together strategies or filters, as President Trenzia likes to call them, to help us think about how do we staff the college appropriately, how do we work with the faculty appropriately, making sure we're doing the right things. And Barb pointed out rightfully, we have to be mindful of the faculty hiring cycle. It's different than the year-round cycle that most of the other units enjoy. I think is probably the right way to say that.
It would be an enjoyment if we didn't have to worry about the faculty cycle.
Exactly.
Yep.
So that's what we're going to be doing, and we have a goal. Do you want me to share the numbers?
Of course.
That this year we have to find $500,000 in savings, and that permanent savings of $1.5 million by the end of next year. So that going into the 2021 budget, How is that even possible? We would have a permanent savings of $1.5 million. So a lot of work ahead of us.
And we want to do it in a way that doesn't hurt because we believe in investment.
Exactly.
So engaging the community in this good thinking is critical. And we still are in better shape than many others, believe it or not. But it was an interesting conversation because I do think, with the trustee, I do think SUNY's looking to say, she pretty much said, those who are doing well and out of the box thinking and being creative are the ones who are going to make it. And it's not, she wasn't saying those with the larger enrollments, but those institutions that are nimble and agile and can figure this out and keep moving forward are where they want to hear more about. And I think that's us. But we've got to figure this out.
I have a question. What percentage of the classes now are taught by full-time faculty?
Well, you asked that last year. And
I don't know the number off the top of my head, but that is something we're going to be looking at.
No, we gave the answer. Yeah.
Because I look back at old things. When I first came here in ancient times, we had about 95% of the classes were taught by full-time faculty. Since then, I think it's gone down by about half.
I don't think it's that. I don't think it's. Sue, do you know?
I don't know the number off the top of my head, and obviously it fluctuates fall to spring.
Right.
And it certainly has changed, but I think that from the last time we'd taken a look at it, we were still in a better proportion, let's say, to other institutions. That we had more full-time faculty teaching.
We do.
And I would say that our efforts have been to try to make sure that full-time faculty are teaching those intro courses,
Right.
which I think is really critical.
I agree.
So English was a big one.
Yes.
And so every faculty member in the humanities, who teaches English, teaches a section of 101 at least.
Only one?
At least.
I had 4.
Yeah. but that's a big shift because those often were taught by adjuncts. So there's an effort to
The only reason I ask this is it is the heart of the institution, the classroom, and that really don't want to see
So I have a
savings
question.
gotten.
From a budget standpoint, is it more effective or more cost effective to have a full-time faculty or an adjunct?
I would rather talk about it value added, because where we can best use full-time and have that full-time cadre, and the beauty of this is the full-time are tenure track. So the other thing you have to look at is how many institutions are also now non-tenure, and the tenure really is, so that's something else to look at, is there are so many institutions that it's not even a tenure track. The other piece is where we can best utilize, like I think about fisheries and wildlife, and they want full-time. They have a few part-time in areas that we couldn't, that they have the expertise from the industry. So it's an important mix. So value added, because there are those at a part-time basis that can add that. Will there always be a strong full-time contingency here? Yes. That's not the case at across the country. That's not the case. So it's not just full-time, it's full-time tenure, and then how you use the part-time. So, and I know Barb is probably biting at the bit to say something as well.
Just from an economic standpoint purely, because you're a businesswoman and you understand that, part-time is cheaper.
It
You're
is.
paid on a contract rate. It is significantly cheaper. What's that?
It's, yes, very much less.
It's significantly cheaper. And one of the issues, even within the part-time piece that I hope the workforce development group looks at, is what we pay them even in the part-time rates.
Right.
We're not competitive with the area. So we may be competitive within our sector, Canton, Morrisville, Alfred State, but we're not competitive with the geographic area because there's 22 universities within Albany, an hour of Albany. And so you have an adjunct core there that can really farm out to many different places. So that's one way that I think that we can maintain some loyalty within our part-timers, is to compensate them even at a slightly higher rate, but ultimately cost less than hiring a full-timer. The value of full-timers,
Please.
to echo what you said, of course I'm going to advocate for full-time faculty.
Of course.
I am a full-time faculty member. My commitment to this college does not extend just to my classroom and my office hours. I'm involved in the community. You know who I am. If you see me on the street, you can ask a question. That there are part-timers who absolutely do that, but there's no obligation for them to do that. There is an obligation to service. There is an obligation to research as part of a full-time gig.
Let me add a little bit more to that, piggybacking off of what Barb said. We are going to increase the part-time, but when we increase the part-time, we increase the extra service to the full-time. And that's important.
Right, like I teach extra classes.
Correct.
And
so
I'm
it's
a
not
part-timer
just
for that one.
right. It's not just taking care of the part-time. We also put out that we are obligated and value that whatever the part-time get, the full-time who are teaching extra service are going to get the same. So everybody moves up, and so we've got to watch that cost factor. So I wanted to make sure you understood
in the
that.
Past, having been here a few years, it's been obvious that the budget was trying to be balanced on the back of the students through adjuncts.
In the past.
Yes, that's what I said, in the past.
Yeah.
And I think that was too bad. But there is a value to adjunct professors.
There is a value to adjuncts.
Particularly in the technology side.
Correct.
English is kind of the same,
Right.
if you will, but
Right.
changes quickly in hydraulics and whatever.
And
there is a
right, and we try to use the visiting line in a way that allows full time and see if they get their sea legs with us, right, Sue? So we've done that. Now the visiting line isn't a tenure line, but it's a full time line, and then I don't know how many times it's flipped to tenure.
Yeah,
to
after
tenure
3 years,
lines.
it has to go to a tenure track line,
Right.
and that's part of our contract.
Right.
So a visiting professor can only really be in that gig for 3 years before we have to put up or shut up.
So, and every time we look at new programming like fermentation and others, we want the full-time lines there. We don't go, okay, we're going to build this new program on all part-time. Who are the full-time champions? How do we support them? And we actually found 2 extra lines that we took from, for example, the Child Care Center. That was a line that we were told from SUNY you really can't pay that, the full-time Child Care Center person. So we took that line and we gave it to fermentation. We didn't take it away. So it's quite complicated balancing act. It can't be off the backs of students, but it can't be off the backs of the part-time either. And also we're watching very closely how we're handling the administrative lines. Remember, one of the 3 goals this year is to create a contemporary structure at the college in terms of our personnel. So we are watching closely how we do not become administrative top-heavy. Nobody is top-heavy here. So we're all sharing the burden. And you have to understand, as Barb will appreciate, we get a lot of unfunded mandates from SUNY. You got to watch safety and internal controls. And so we're doing all of that by spreading the wealth among the cabinet members who are wearing, Bonnie Martin's wearing 3 hats.
Don't even know.
Wendy just took
calling her for.
Right. Wendy just took over a couple more, and when I turn to the cabinet and say, "Can you do this?" the answer is yes, without extra compensation. So that has to be part of the story as well. We're doing the best we can, making sure that we value everybody as best we know how.
Can I add one more thing?
Please.
One of the silent savings that you don't see, that is not on the backs of students, are our energy savings. They have been tremendous over the last 5 years. And if it weren't for the smart work of Joe Batchelder and his team, we would be in a much bigger pickle than we are. And that is, all that savings is permanent savings, and it is money that doesn't come out of the hands of students.
$1.5 million in savings. Cut the budget in half from $3 million to $1.5 million. You're right. Right? I mean,
and I actually, we had $400,000 just this year alone that I was able to reduce the budget by because of the utilities.
Thank you for.
Yes. It's huge.
So that's, and we look at it, all areas, how we try to
I read what you said to me, Wendy.
to support, and it's a complicated process. Hence, our CFO says, okay, I have an idea how to do this, and let's get everybody at the table. That's what happens. And I know sometimes it's extra meetings, but they're important. And, Barb and her team, executive committee, helps us find the right people. And in this case, we put people on the committee who had expertise, not necessarily representation. So I appreciate that work too.
So I have one, I know this is,
Please.
we're running late.
We're
but
good.
So it's an important question for Wendy. The 500,000 of savings, are you looking, that's personnel savings? Because, here's the phenomenon, right? As our energy and OTPS gets smaller,
Right.
our personnel wedge gets bigger, even though the number doesn't necessarily get bigger, our percentage goes up. So is that a combined savings? You just want to drop that by 500K?
This year, it's really a combined savings,
Okay.
but long-term, it's gotta be somehow in people. I don't know. That's why we're putting the committee together.
Mhm.
How can we be creative? I have said multiple times, and I will repeat this, we are not talking about layoffs. I don't want anybody thinking about layoffs. But we're thinking about alternative funding sources. Are we charging the appropriate people to the residence halls? Ann and I have had many discussions about that. What's fair? We're not trying to be unfair to anybody. So it's going to be a combination of strategies.
And let me add something else, because we don't have to talk about the media opportunities. We can do that another time. This is really what's critical, particularly with John Saharic here. It has become crystal clear. You've heard me say you can't run an institution on tuition alone, which has been the case here. But let me add another layer that I think is quite interesting, and it came to me after talking to so many folks. We are not just, we're not a liberal arts institution. And for a lack of a better word, and I apologize until we find the right word, we are a mini Research One institution. That's who we are. And when you look at how Research One's run, there are a lot of endowed this and this and that, and there's funding that's coming from all over, not just tuition. So first of all, no institution, I don't care if you're just completely just, not an expensive program, you can't run. So that's number one, and that's been our life for a while. Number two, when you look at what happens here, Riverkeeper, or the gasifier, or what's happening in fishery and wildlife, you look at what we're doing, we have programs that require outside support to be sustained. And I think now I want to continue that thinking to say, that's who we are. That's the way we're going to go fundraise. Who are our partners out there? So when I spoke at a sustainability conference, I was a keynoter on Friday, and I talked about the good work we're doing. A gentleman from Siemens sat down and he looked up, he said, how does a Siemens get to support a Cobleskill? What are you guys doing, and how do I get into it? And John has taught us this, and I know I'm not digressing because it's the whole picture. So we want to say, all right, what endowed chairs? That's where we're going. We're going to find endowed chairs for the faculty. Who's going to support that? What about an endowed equipment supply for programs that need it? So we are building a new model. While Wendy's doing this good work, we are going to be 5 years out with a whole different way of approaching us, so that these conversations that we just had will be more exciting. So I am here to tell you, on record, we're going to build the faculty cohort, and we're going to do it through endowed chairs. That is our goal, right, John?
Exactly.
And the students asked me, right, at the meeting I was with you, what did I want to have at the end of the year, and what did I say to you guys? I want to have a big gift come in with John for this, and I'm on record.
Yeah, you definitely are.
I am on record.
Like, okay.
Because we can do it.
And with the Chancellor's initiative,
Yes.
it becomes the possibility is even greater.
Right.
Because exactly.
Right.
So all of a sudden, when you can go out to donors and you can say, you can make this happen.
Right.
And quite frankly,
We
you're going
can.
to double your money.
Yeah.
That's powerful. So we've got great opportunities there.
So at the next meeting, we'll be more than happy to share this new approach with you guys. So I want to digress because I thought it was, and thank you for the question, because it's obviously much broader. So I really, because of that, would like to end my report, but just to say that the Economic Roundtable meeting went very well yesterday. For those of you who came, thank you. I will be going Friday with the gang of 8 of us to talk about the budget proposal to the supervisors. Friday. It's going to be an interesting meeting, and we expect it to be quite contentious, actually. So there's a lot at stake, and the private sector stepping up. And one thing they said is because SUNY Cobleskill has put our name in the ring and that we've become a leader in economic development. So things on that front will start turning around as well. So, anything else we need to share from my gang? Thank you.
Okay, then we will table the Cobleskill media opportunities until next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Excuse me,
Sounds good.
I
Yes,
have to
Ann.
leave because I have to take my husband to an appointment.
Okay. Thank you for coming. Okay, Barb, faculty governance update.
Sure. We talked a little bit earlier about the Fiscal Affairs and Strategic Planning Committee retooling. It's taking the effort, concentrated effort, and smart wisdom of the group of about 11 that are on that committee and putting them into four bins, one of which is the workforce management team. We also have, I'm sorry, I have them written here. No, that's the same one.
Great colleges to work.
The great colleges to work for, right? We have representation from Fiscal Affairs and Strategic Planning on that.
Retention task.
Okay, YouTube is going to see that I have someone with great. The Pathways Task Force, its name changed. And there's one more. Thank you, Scott's Prodigy, the diversity initiative that comes from City System. You'd think that there was something else in this bill today. Maybe that'll help. Whisper quietly to me. So representatives from FAST will be on all of these individual task forces, and then they will accumulate as a group on their biweekly meetings to discuss the progress of those groups, and then create. And then they still have to work on the direction of other things as well. One of the issues that Fiscal Affairs and Strategic Planning is working on that's separate of these committees, but does tie into the Pathways Task Force now that I found my notes, is should we bring competency-based learning to this institution? This is an initiative nationwide, international-wide, if you will, and there's discussion on a certain level about competency-based learning. And how does that fit with a bricks and mortar academic structure that we have right here? So interestingly, we have applied learning. We've had applied learning forever. We've been recognized for our leadership in applied learning, and competency-based learning is very much tied to applied learning. But instead of having time in the seat plus the skills, competency-based learning is to look at the skills first and then remediate, or in certain circumstances, add bricks and mortar instructions to fill in the gaps. This is not a new concept. This has been a concept in certain curricula since the dawn of time. If you think of like the guilds of ancient, Europe with plumbing and so on, it was competency-based. You would apprentice to learn the skills, and then once you had those skills, you could go off and be the master. So that's the historical perspective of competency-based learning. We want to see what a modern academic structure and competency-based learning means in this environment. So they're working kind of on the theoretical level to be able to talk about pros and cons and implementations and where it's worked and where it hasn't worked. And we expect probably in February, we would have something to share from the group that talks about all of that. So we would, at a certain point, like to talk to students about their thoughts of it. I'm sure it's not something that's been like burning on their mind, but given a certain scenario, what they would think about its implementation and what they would look for, given the fact that it's not the traditional model of education.
I'll totally ask FGA whenever you want me to.
Yeah, I think it'll probably be in January, February.
Okay, cool.
Any questions about those retooling efforts? Okay. The provost and I and the registrar have been working on revising our block schedule. I wish Dan were here to hear it. She would be very happy to hear that. One of the issues, especially with part-time employees, is that we have really two sets of class times, Monday, Wednesday, Friday for 50 minutes, and we have Tuesday, Thursday for 75 minutes each. Adjuncts, given the price of gas, given the weather in Schoharie County, don't necessarily want to drive here 3 days a week, so it can be an impediment to hiring them. So we've come up with an alternative block that would meet on Monday, Wednesday, or Wednesday, Friday for 75 minutes.
doesn't eliminate the Monday, Wednesday, Friday for 50 minutes. It just adds. Look at Scott. He's like, yes.
Yeah.
So we're vetting this right now, Scott. And then getting feedback. So if you would like to send me an email as to what you think, I got it, but I'm accumulating reactions from all. And then with that, we're trying to streamline a potential final schedule for the future. So I sent that to you yesterday. Yes, I did. I saw. I read it. I was here. I read
Excellent.
it. And then there were 4 resolutions that were passed by University Faculty Senate. As campus governance leader, I'm involved in the Senate, but I'm not your senator. That's Chuck Moran. And I'll give you these resolutions were passed by the Senate and are sent to the Chancellor's office. One is removing any impediments to lactation on campus. Breastfeeding and pumping is important given the demographic shift of our student population. It needs both from a workforce standpoint and also from a student standpoint. The Department of Labor has a policy for people who work here, but SUNY wanted to extend that to a policy for students as well. And Faculty Senate certainly endorsed that, and has asked the Chancellor to make that as easy as possible for students and faculty, or not faculty, workers, to be able to deal with breastfeeding moms on campus. Another one is in the use for any SUNY-wide materials that are distributed to use gender-neutral pronouns, using they as a singular form that doesn't designate male or female as a means of being more inclusive to the non-binary nature of gender. So that initiative has gone to the Chancellor, and I believe the Board of Trustees, the larger board, has also put out similar language, so I would expect something very quickly to happen at the SUNY level on that one. Probably one that that's most that we've been talking about and is timely because now Faculty Senate is talking about it, is encouraging SUNY to be test optional as a system. So test optionality comes from the idea that SATs, ACTs aren't necessarily the best judgment of ability or intelligence, but rather more correlate with your family's wealth and your family's race and your background. So if you're middle class and white, then you score better on an SAT than if you're non-white or non-middle class, all other things being equal. And as we're looking for criteria for admission that are meaningful so that we can get a flavor for what a student is, and because we're small, because we have different types of styles of learning that go on here, we've already been talking about being test optional here on this campus. We've been talking about it, which faculty are really good at, but we haven't actually finished it. But I think this will be a kick in the pants to get us to the point where now we can talk about it and perhaps implement changes. Surprisingly, the policy that was sent to SUNY also asks for their graduate programs, their professional programs to eliminate MCAT, GRE, and LSAT, because they too have exactly the same problems as the SAT and the ACT.
May I add to that, because this is the fun part and the important part of shared governance. So what we're going to try to do, first of all, we're going to use January a little bit differently to do more work with the faculty separately, but we've asked several departments to look at this and bring forward what they might change as models, just so that the faculty can get their minds around this, because the administration has the ultimate authority, but here at Cobleskill we share. It's an important shared governance piece. So faculty need to tell us what they think that would make most sense. So we're trying this out with one department from each school. We may have a couple others because we were talking about that yesterday, to see what it looks like. It's not just to say get rid of the tests. Why don't we take the opportunity, right, Barb, to say what could we do that would be way beyond it.
Right. What information is more meaningful even than the tests themselves?
Yeah. Yeah. So more to come on that.
Anyone ever looked at what their test scores were and then how they ultimately did in college.
Oh, yeah.
And then
There's just
Here's a shocker for
no
you.
correlation.
The number one correlation in how well you're going to do in college is how well you did in high school.
Right.
I know.
Lots
it's
of
just a
research,
shocker.
and there's the result.
But to your point, one thing we want to add, and others are doing it, they're calling it the heart indicator, and these are kids who take care of families and still go to school or do community service. Are we going to learn more about that student and put that as part of the formula than not?
And can they multitask?
And
right?
can they multitask? So resilience, Barb talked about resilience the other day. So why don't we step back and see, because I think it fits who our students are. Would you not agree?
Yeah, I would agree. And wouldn't you get to be shown that like through their essays?
Oh,
Like,
interesting.
some part of that?
Interesting.
I don't want to make any judgments about essays at this table.
Yeah.
No,
No, but
I just know that I use my essays to portray like my resilience and my community service. I mean, that's just one part I use for my application.
so, but more to come on that. But
Yep. And so we've brought it forward to the administration, and I believe if Scott hasn't heard yet, Scott and Caleb may be tasked with putting their heads together to come up with some starting points.
well,
for
because
our discussion.
tell them. I mean, part of the resolution was for diversity purposes, right,
Right.
Barb?
I mean, this
Yeah.
goes to that non-white, non-middle class population.
That just happened.
And capture where they shine best, where groups can portray themselves in the truest light. We just want people to be represented for exactly who they are and what they can do.
So if you squint, this may be somewhat related to that, but I've read in public school, there's an effort to decouple teacher evaluations from test score.
Yes.
Is that good? Is it bad? Is it?
That's a great question. I don't have enough judgment to be able to say, is it good or bad? I have an opinion, but it's not based on anything that's educated.
I'd love to hear it.
My opinion is I don't think test scores are a good reflection of a teacher's ability.
Absolutely.
You can drag a horse to water, you can hold the horse's head underwater, you can take a deep breath yourself, you can blow into their mouth and give them CPR. It doesn't mean they're going to drink. So, all of those are... I mentioned to Marion and Sue just 2 days ago that one of the things I see this semester with students who aren't succeeding is not that they're trying and failing, is that they're not even trying. This idea that I just can't engage to the point to get my homework done. I can't turn things in on time. Like, that isn't a learning issue. I mean, it's a life learning issue, right? But it isn't necessarily the iteration of teaching and learning and teaching and learning. There's some other block there. And so for the group that I'm currently dealing with, that seems to be the predominant theme. So back to resiliency, how do I help them overcome that barrier that prevents them from engaging? They're coming to class too. That's the funny thing. They're coming to class, but they're just not getting their stuff done.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And if I may, congratulations. We have our new presiding officer for the next.
Oh, I've been reelected. Yes.
Congratulations.
I and the secretary have both been reelected to our final term. We are term limited.
There's always an encore.
You're limited on graduation.
But Barb,
Any questions about that? There was another one to reinstitute funding to incentivize graduate students to have more of a pipeline from SUNY undergraduate to SUNY graduate programs. And that went to the chancellor as well. And we have volunteered to help on that front any way that we can. I think at this institution we have an enormous number of great pathways for students who have graduated and want to go on to graduate school or professional school. We have created these pathways for them. They're often not utilized to their fullest extent, which is a bit of a shame, but it's not an impediment for a student who goes here.
Bylaw change.
What bylaw change?
Term limits.
Term limits? I'm not bringing that up. Do I have to write that down now that it's on YouTube? Okay.
Excuse me, yesterday, I think I heard you say there were 1,000 students from surrounding schools, wherever that may be, that are coming here on a part-time basis.
So it's 1,000 enrollments. I just want to clarify that, but that is It's a lot of students.
It is.
Generally, they're
That's my
taking a
point.
course. They might be taking a couple of courses,
Yeah,
if,
I
you know,
understand,
over a
yeah.
year. But yeah, we've
Coming
really,
here at all is an
Oh.
outstanding number.
absolutely. And on Friday, actually, we just held, I think it's our third day for college and high school students from Cobleskill, Richmondville, and in the spring, we'll be opening up a half day for all of our college and high school partner schools to bring their students to campus. And so what happens, Barb participated in this.
21, I had 21 students.
That's amazing.
So you did the
We
DNA
we
pendants,
isolated
right?
DNA from their cheek cells.
Yeah,
Yeah, and they made little pendants. And
yeah. So they do like half-hour workshops, you know, 3 of them in a, you know, morning here on campus, get to interact with our faculty. The beauty of that and why we started with Cobleskill is because we do have these pathway programs with them. So we had a lot of students who came for graphic design, for example, who were interested in graphic design, were in the graphic design pathway. So they came, but we want to let students know we have a robust science program, or science programs, and other areas as well. So that was pretty exciting. But yeah, it's a lot of students. We've now gone to Hudson High School, who's interested in partnering with us, Amsterdam High School. So it's extending out. You know, what we're hearing is and actually we just had a dinner with, it's the Schoharie County Superintendent's Council, which also includes Bern, Knox, Westerlo, and Waynesburg. And they all want in, you know, on developing pathways. So it's pretty exciting times.
Right, we went and met with the superintendent of Amsterdam. The
Yeah.
superintendent of Hudson was here, and they had a faculty professional day, and he told the entire high school of faculty, your professional day will be at the Cobleskill campus, and they were here.
And they visited program areas, so there were about 40 high school teachers who came.
I saw them too.
And Barb saw them too, so thank you. And then he came, so it was kind of funny, you know, he came here with, the principal came here with the guidance counselor like on a Friday. On Monday, he sent an email and said, I want to bring all my teachers. So that was quickly organized. And then as soon as they came back to school, so let's say, so Hudson High School is right close to Columbia Green, but the types of programs we might work on developing with them would either be through articulations with Columbia Green or programs that Columbia Green doesn't offer, college and high school, they don't. So we've reached out to Schenectady Community College, for example, to say, hey, you know, high schools in your area are kind of interested in partnering with us. You know, typically ag programs, that's an easy lift because we can say,
Like
they don't
Shenandoah,
offer
we
it.
have early childhood education.
Exactly, Shenandoah, yeah. So we have to be very careful that we don't step on anybody's toes.
But we are good neighbors.
Yeah.
There are other institutions who would not necessarily be as nice as we are, but we don't want to upset our
I was
colleagues.
thinking about my high school. I was like, I bet they'd want to partner with Cobleskill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which high school is it?
It's Tri-Valley.
Yeah.
It's 2 hours away though, so.
Yeah.
Doesn't
They
matter.
love,
We-
a lot of kids come to Cobleskill from Tri-Valley.
There
We
you
just
go.
had a school from Western New York reach out to us. You know, and a lot of this happens through faculty connections. We have a new faculty member in ag engineering who, you know, has a connection with this teacher at the high school out in Western New York. And, you know, as long as we're not stepping on someone else's service area.
Yeah.
So we're expanding and I think word is getting out that.
Expand to Tri-Valley. My foster mom's a teacher.
And that's part of Debbie Richards. You know, we did a little bit of a change in my office, and that's really her role is taking on those. So when I walk back in there, I'm going to tell her, look up Tri-Valley,
Yeah, I
right?
can tell Debbie too.
Yeah. But she's really overseeing these college high school partnerships because I do think that's really important.
No, I do too. I did that at the high school.
So how does the funding work on that?
It's
Is there-
it's
Is it?
what is it, 100
Well,
and
students pay $50 a credit hour.
Yeah.
And so there is, I'll say free for students with free and reduced lunch. You know, that it really depends. So, you know, what we find is that does enable us to, you know, so our faculty go out and they conduct classroom observations. You know, they work with the high school teachers to make sure that our courses are being offered and they're being assessed. So our faculty get a stipend for doing that.
it's not we're not doing it for a moneymaker by any
It's
means.
not a money
Right.
maker.
Put
But
it like a.
it takes care of itself.
Oh, okay.
It takes
Yeah.
care of itself, so it
Yeah.
works beautifully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a new program talking about the financial model through the financial aid office where if you're from a local school and you want to come here and live in the residence halls, you can get a scholarship. I think it's $4,000 $6,000, like up to $3,000 a semester to live in the residence halls, even if you live in Waynesburg or you live in Cobleskill, Richmondville. So you can still get that college experience and forge those friendships that are so important and get out from mom and dad's, you know, roof do your own laundry. And that is a moneymaker for the college because even though there's a scholarship there to offset some of that cost, the cost of being in the residence hall, the cost of having a meal plan brings money into the college above and beyond that. So it's a very smart decision.
What Barbara's referring to, and we can share with you on next meeting, is we finally have what we call a financial aid matrix, and how we are utilizing every last penny from all sources into boxes, if you will, and cells. And one of them was we had extra beds. We call it bed coin, by the way. And it doesn't cost, so you don't get the full 10,000, you get 7,000. So big deal. So we can share that with you to show how we're leveraging all of our resources if we haven't done that yet.
And there's really, other than the cost to send the faculty out to do the observation, there's no cost to us to offer, because the high school teachers are offering this. They're not getting, that's on the high school to build that into their load. So it's extremely cost effective, and it does allow us to do some other things to build the program. And I think, what was really telling to us at the dinner with the superintendents was that they really spoke up to say, they talk in other circles about, so they're part of a larger capital region group, and other schools are saying this is not happening with our area college, that they're a little envious of the relationship, but
right, because our faculty are in contact with. It is not a laissez-faire, hands-off thing. We're very involved. We share our syllabi. We talk about book selection. We talk about pedagogies. In my area, we talk about labs and how to implement labs. So it's critical.
I talked to the faculty from Hudson, and their experience is not that at all with their community college. They're basically just, well, do whatever. So the faculty in the high school actually don't like the fact that they're giving nothing, right? So there's a lot of positives on how that faculty interaction happened with the Cobleskill.
I just think you're empowering that faculty.
Sure.
And as you can see, we are on all cylinders right now, and I apologize as we're sharing stuff. There's things that you guys don't know.
And that's fine. That's what this meeting's all about.
It's always...
It'll be really interesting as time moves on to try to evaluate how many of the students on the PTEC, all these programs, how many of them come to college here full time.
So
I know that's a ways off to be able to do that, but
so we are tracking them.
Okay.
So that was one of the things that especially for the college and the high school, that we've made a different, bigger effort to do. PTEC, we've tracked them from the beginning as well. So, but
be interesting.
And we know that some. It's only been a couple of years that we've been doing the degree pathways at Cobleskill, but we know that students have come in on those pathways, even though they hadn't even accumulated. They might have been seniors when they started taking the courses, but it was interesting to them to be able to visualize that. That's where
I'll tell you a benefit to the college beyond students, because I used to think about, okay, are they going to come here, but are they going to come to college
go anywhere
first? Right? That's a benefit to us all. And then what about the development of a relationship with that teacher in the high school? We've actually hired some of those teachers who have been college and high school teachers to come and teach our labs part-time. And they appreciate that because they get more contact in the same content as what they're teaching in the high school, and they see how we teach it, and then they have that perspective they can bring back, and they get paid for that. So
too bad not being able to expand to young students, and I won't say an age, how many opportunities they have.
Well, that's the mobile skill that's sitting outside. That's going to middle schools. Yeah, we ought to start going.
Why?
And we are.
You remember I used to do the camp for 6th grade through 12th grade, all girls. That was really important. I've actually thought about going back and tracking how many of them went to college and how many went to college in STEM, because that was the original goal of that back in the 2000s.
And I think that's an area where Iggy's crew venturing program, the STEM program, has really been important in this area too. So, 14 to 21-year-old students who are interested in STEM, and she's really working closely with them. So.
Any other questions?
There's a lot going on.
And Barbara, thank you for this report.
You're welcome. Sorry I couldn't be here last month. Things have calmed down on the family front considerably, so no one's in the hospital all the time, and there's no hurricanes yet.
That'll only be 10 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Take your kind of flesh.
Okay. Then moving on, foundation update, Wendy?
Sure. What can I say?
I don't see Tim.
Well, I saw Culinary Extravaganza was on your
Yeah, it
list,
is,
so
yes.
I'll let you do that. We're working with John how to restructure the foundation board a little bit to make it more effective, better use of their time, working with John and moving forward in the fundraising arena. So anything you want to add to that?
No, I think that's about it. A lot of reorganization from the standpoint of how we're looking to structure things to be a bit more efficient and hopefully generate more dollars in the door so that not only can we look forward budget-wise, but we can look forward new money-wise. So that's really the focus right now.
Good.
And then I can report on for the Alumni Association. Marie is working a lot with the Havelock Society, which is the student chapter for the Alumni Association, which I think is great to kind of bring them forward and getting a new student member on the board. So we get that student perspective. And then we're also going to be working with the alumni board, restructuring them a little bit, working with them on their goals for moving forward. And again, how do we use their time effectively? And you're hearing a theme. We have a lot of volunteers that work really hard with the college, but we want them to actually feel like they're doing meaningful work. They're not just coming and not really accomplishing anything. So that's John and I are working hard on making that happen.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll go on to the culinary extravaganza. I think it was the best one I've been to in a long, long time. And we certainly had a great crowd. And they were all active and involved and raising money, and
Food was great.
Oh,
Is there
it
a
was.
figure? I think we were close to
Yes.
$50,000
About $50,000.
overall, including the text together.
Yeah. No, I thought that.
Net.
And the silent auction.
Yeah.
The silent auction. We have to.
I know. I
we
got
have to
dates.
deliver on that.
I got dates.
I got a call about the brunch, so we just have to
Yeah.
pick a date.
That's right. That's right.
Is there a way that faculty could help with a silent auction in the future? For example, lunch with a faculty member or guest speaking at someone's high school or middle school as a gift. Those are gifts that really are precious and unique and may really allow an outside person to meet the face
Good
of
idea.
Cobleskill.
Wonderful.
Sounds like fun.
No, but I can't say enough about the extravaganza. I thought it was just really well done. Scholarship luncheon went off again very well. It was a different theme, different way of recognizing the students, but I thought it was much more effective. Certainly was more effective as far as everyone's time was concerned. And I thought the students felt just as appreciated, if you will, and the donors too. So I thought that was a good step. Good. Any other comments on the scholarship? No? Okay. Kobe's. Oh, I went to the last pairing there. It was with a beer company from House Cave.
Serious program.
Yes,
yeah.
and he was very complimentary about the help that he had received from Cobleskill.
He's a startup New York company.
Yes,
Yeah.
and getting his brand started and his labels, and he couldn't say enough good things. So I thought that was really good. I sat there and said, "Yeah, Cobleskill." But
he gave credit to the graphic artists program.
yes, he did.
A whole bunch of things.
Yes, you were there too, Scott.
Yeah.
Startup New York for us works well. I know it hasn't worked for others, but you have Serious Brewing, the ESG and stuff, and Jason, kudos. He gets a lot of
yes.
credit because he
Right guy
walked
for the
Bill
job.
through. Bill was supposed to be at the lodge and it didn't work, and he kept with him, and we found him where he is now. So that's what we do. That's Cobleskill style.
No, they were naming Jason
Good.
also.
He deserves it.
And how much he had helped them.
Well, good. Thank you for that.
Any other council members' reports? Yes, Eric.
I'd like to give an advancement report. John and Susan and I had our first pre-council meeting conversation on advancement, and got just a few notes.
Okay.
Got about an hour left.
Don't worry, you'll be out by 5.
Yeah. I mean, this is a report in and of it. There's a lot going on. And some of these things were touched on, the culinary extravaganza. We think about more than $50,000 of proceeds possibly raised. Scholarship lunch, 300 students.
Wow.
Office of Advancement, Barbara Moore, continuing as part-time member of its staff as advancement officer. 2 annual fund appeals currently in place, fall appeal for 3,500 past donors, and faculty staff appeal, 500 individuals, and the new recognition society only for on-campus donors called One Kobe. Very interesting. Havelock was mentioned. Office of Advancement meeting with Marketing and Communications to develop a thank you video for Kay Merrill to recognize her scholarship donations. And travel to Oregon in the future to see Ms. Merrill and present the video. I'll go with it.
Yeah. We'll book another ticket.
Yeah. Advancement team began initial planning with class of 1969, Golden Grads reunion. The board, both the foundation and alumni boards are looking for new directors, seeking nominations. And alumni office supporting diversity, inclusion, equity efforts to host a Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service on January 21st. And these notes actually match very well with notes I took. So John would be happy to elaborate on these. But it was a very good conversation. I think Susan and I both enjoyed really getting a little bit behind the scenes and stuff.
Good.
So thank you.
Thank you.
John, can I ask one question?
Sure.
Do you know what percentage of faculty giving you have right now?
Yeah, we're right around the 50% range,
Okay.
if memory serves.
Okay.
Bear with me, but
No, that's fine.
I believe it's right around 50%, so which is pretty good.
Yeah.
Participation is key at any amount, and that's what we're trying to promote through One Kobe. You become a One Kobe member with any contribution. But one of the benefits of One Kobe is we really want folks to be able to go out and show their pride. So at a contribution of just $9.62 per pay period, any faculty or staff member will get a pin that they can wear and demonstrate their pride. So there'll be ways that we acknowledge all members across campus, Kobe family members that become a part of One Kobe. But with the lapel pins, it starts at just $9.62 per pay period, give or take a penny.
To the annual fund?
To the annual
Yeah.
fund. So, and thank you to Barb for co-signing the appeal that's going out. I think that's very important to have that representative across campus and everyone certainly has great respect for. So, thank you for doing that.
It's my pleasure. And I have not donated to the annual fund. As you know, I have them in. My donations go to specific accounts, but I will make sure that I hit the annual fund with a minimum of my $9. And a pin.
Thank you again. And you also, when you give to the annual fund, you can designate your gift, so that it does show that on the pledge card. So you do give generously, and we appreciate that.
What percentage of the council, do you have that information?
That's a great question. I don't have that answer right now, and I'm hoping 100. I'm going to challenge everyone around the table. I think we've got 100.
Cheyenne, I'll put in $5.
Yeah.
Covered.
Our president, I'll
We'll do it.
We'll do it together.
Whopping $10.
That's
Yeah,
right.
a whopping 10.
I'll join you.
Okay.
You want the pin?
I love it. Love it.
I think council members should be eligible for the pin.
You're part of the family.
Part of the
So
family.
we're on campus.
You're part of the family. Absolutely.
I have a question.
Yes.
Does the SGA fundraising, we're doing like a new incentive program, it's not gonna call that, because we have less money in the budget this year, but is that like a talk in that kind of meeting, or not really? Is that like a separate thing?
From the standpoint, I don't
From like
fully
College of
understand.
Advancement, we have to go through that to get it approved. A new fundraising incentive program. Our treasurer Murphy is working on that. Basically, it's for clubs to fundraise, but we give them a little incentive to do it.
Yes, and so we've been starting to get the word out there. Please try and work through the Office of Advancement.
Yeah.
And I know SGA is on my list of groups to get in with to have an open dialogue and discussion.
Yeah.
So that we can better talk
Mercedes
about.
definitely wants to meet with you, just to
Fantastic.
really, because we have to actually get approved by you. And I was like, oh, really? Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
It's coordination.
Yeah,
You know, we like to not call it
engagement.
approval, but more coordination, kind of keeping
Yeah.
everybody in the loop
So
and
we
aware
all-
of what
Yeah,
we're doing.
and I think you'll approve on our new, well, I think you'll like it, our new process.
We just mainly need to know who you're reaching out to so that we are
We're
aware.
not reaching out to anyone, it's just in our budget
Okay.
line.
There
and
you
then
go.
we're kind of like funding them for material this year, because we have a lower budget.
But the clubs are going to be out.
The clubs
That's
would be
who we have to
fundraising
know.
their products or whatever, yeah,
Right.
it would have to go through,
Exactly.
yeah,
So just keeping those lines of communication open so that,
sure. I'll tell
because
them.
to the outside community, they look at us and they say, well, it's all Cobleskill.
Yeah.
They don't understand that, well, this is SGA, this is the Office of Advancement.
Yeah.
This is School of Ag, they don't see any difference.
All right, cool, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, any other council members have comments? Hearing none, we're at our PowerPoint presentation. What time are we supposed to be up at?
Now.
10, yeah.
And we have a
Okay.
cabinet meeting starting at 10. We probably have to move lots of these things back because we're always running
Well,
over.
why don't we postpone the PowerPoint? We can always take a look at that. It's something we have here. It's SUNY volunteering, and I'm sure they were talking about Costa Rica, I believe, basically, but in other areas too, but we can always see that. So we'll put that again on for February, so that we can stay on time here.
And we don't need an executive session to this.
Okay?
Yeah, we're good.
All right. Then I believe we're at the end of our program. I'd like to consider a motion for adjournment.
So move, and happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Thank you. A second?
I will second.
Second, okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And meeting's adjourned, and again.